So an interesting thing is going on in my city recently. There's a lot of kind of racial discussions. You're seeing it in Canada as well, with Senator Beyak bringing up this thing. That reservation schools weren't that bad, or they weren't bad at all. And so up here in Thunder Bay, locally, we had Shelby Chung, who is a counselor, bring up an attempt to get the Thunder Bay City Council to ask Senator Beyak to resign. And there was an issue. Some people said this isn't our role to be condemning people. She's entitled to the role. There was actually a long editorial by one of the counselors about freedom of speech, and I think, and I'll say this right now, that's first of all not the issue. This isn't freedom of speech. A senator has a certain they have a certain amount of responsibilities they have to live up to, and one is that they have to accept the history of the country and the government of Canada, the educational system, multiple teachers, professors, pretty much everyone agrees that reservation schools was not a good time, and that did happen. And so freedom of speech is like you opining on facts that are out there. You can't just make an opinion up and say that's a fact. That's not how it works. Freedom of speech is not so you can use this as a freedom of speech as your forum to make up and revise history. And so I take issue with using the freedom of speech defense, and I'll go into that soon. But I just want to say thank you to Shelby Chung, although her motion to ask for resignation was changed. She got everybody to vote for it, and people said we shouldn't be asking for resignations. We'll only condemn it. One of the people said it's a slippery slope that we go on once we start condemning and asking people to resign. I don't think it is. I think if people do something wrong, you ask them to leave. And I think we teach our kids this. So I don't think that's a slippery slope, teaching ethics to our children. Mayor Hobbs said, where does this stop, or where does it stop? Implying that, all the time of city council could be just taken up by condemnations. If that was the case, if that became your job in this council, or this passed, and that all your job, like everything, every day was just condemning people, doesn't that show you there's a problem with Canada? Haven't you asked your own, you know, answered your own question? So I think where does it stop? It stops when people stop acting like this. So let's get into Beyak, because I think there's a lot of ignorance about who she is and what she's saying, and what is the damage, and why there's so many Indigenous outrage, because it's not I haven't met any, like, one Indigenous person who's like, yeah, she's cool. Like they're like, yeah, some good could have come out of it, and we say that matter of factly, having gone through this process, but we don't say it the same way she's saying it. Where she's saying like a small number of Aboriginals found the schools bad, and a slightly smaller number found them good. That is just blatantly untrue. Very, like, if you even go over the story of how reservation schools came to be, parents were starved. Here, I'll bring up a letter right here. There's a letter coming up, and it shows that the government of the time was going to starve the family for taking their children out of school. Um, and this was policy. So your children were taken away by starvation or force. And so the idea that, the half these kids who'd gone through this process, and this happened in the 60s with the 60s scoop, and that they were just perfectly fine with it. Yeah, that was, I see the good in that. I hate my parents, that they didn't protect me, and all this behavior that happened. 38,000 youth saying they were sexually assaulted. So I mean, the extreme of this statement is so big, because you have 38,000 people who are saying they're sexually assaulted out of, they're saying her number is like 150,000 children went through it. So that's almost a third of the children said they were sexually assaulted. And so it's like, are we to believe Senator Beyak that it was, on one side it was just like, man, I didn't know that was going on while I was playing basketball and eating lollipops and having this great time. Like, I didn't, like, no, it's ridiculous. And you just speaking, it's just an opinion. You're just kind of you're saying what you think needs to be said, because I don't know if it's because you think the country needs to heal, but it's false, and it's very bad that you said that, because that's just not true. She said only 1 in 3 Indigenous youth ever attended them. With the family breakdowns that happen due to this type of behavior. And people, to go back to the last point on why starvation would be such a good tool for Indigenous who can hunt and fish, because they outlawed it. And so there's like a 9-year period where her statement could even be true before they outlawed hunting and fishing. I mean, they forced farming and all types of ridiculous behaviors onto Indigenous with no background, because it was just racist. And so, the only 1 in 3 ever attended them. I don't know the historicity on that, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know the historicity on that. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe in another video I can cover that, but I just know that my views personally, I can't answer to that or attest to that. And she said that Trudeau's white paper was brilliant, and this is the elder Trudeau. Pierre Trudeau did a paper. It was going to extinguish all rights for Indigenous and everything. All money was going to be taken away, and he used this kind of idea, and he redefined culture. And so what happened with the white paper and why it was defeated, even though it was brilliant, according to Minister Beyak, is that he was called out for it, that this was basically changing the role of Canada in treaties, and what that meant. We signed treaties with a country based on these kind of inalienable rights that treaties gave us as tort contracts. And so, unilaterally changing that relationship violates the contractual law. It actually violates the basis of the Constitution. And so Trudeau heard all these things from Indigenous people, and at the time they're called Indians. And all these Indians came, they said, "Hey, man, you can't change this. This is ridiculous." And there was all over the country, Indigenous were stomping around, and I don't mean derogatory, stomping around. They were out there, and they had mass demonstrations, and so Trudeau listened to them, and he even met with my grandfather and a lot of people in this area. And after meeting with them and other people, he decided that this was wrong. And why? Well, because he realized that he was about to assimilate and exterminate a whole culture, something that the French people had been going through for a long time, and still in many ways face today from English speakers who refuse to acknowledge the French as a unique culture. And for some reason, I don't know why people want everybody to be the same. Like, let everybody be different. But that's a totally different topic. And so that's when he got rid of it, because he said, "Holy jeez." He said, "Holy jeez." He actually used those terms, "holy jeez." And he said, it's not a brilliant paper. I'm getting rid of this. And actually, in 1982, he put Indigenous into what would be, I guess, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it became constitutionally recognized. Indigenous would always have their rights protected, because history says that is the only way it can be. We can alter that relationship as a group, but we can't just unilaterally get rid of one group and say, "Listen, you're now us." And that's wrong, right? That's really wrong, actually. Um, and so Trudeau, and so she's going back to old racist documents that even the writer, Crescent and Trudeau helped bring this about. Jean, and I love you, Jean. Um, they were like, "We're done with these documents. They're not accurate. They're not good anymore." So she's going back to stuff that they've said they don't even want anything to do with. And so, based on that, she then said all Canadians are then free to preserve their cultures in their own communities. And this is assuming, because she said all Indigenous people should give up their status cards and such. And yeah, I don't want one. I never made that system. So, don't throw that in my face. Like, I love the system. I don't. I'd love to get rid of it, and to have my treaty lands just handed over to me, and we'll go our friendly ways, and we'll do our own thing, and let's be unique peoples and make a better Canada and a better system that's better than any other country in the world. But that's just not happening right now. But so she said, based on us giving all our status cards back and such, which is, this huge assumption that we're enjoying it and we're better than you Canadians. She said all Canadians are then free to preserve their cultures in their own communities on their own time with their own dime. Now, this statement is very troubling to me. And so people have been kind of letting her say, oh, it's just freedom of speech. But it's what she's saying within that statement, not as a free citizen, but as a senator of Canada. This, this powerful role. It's a bastion of high culture. It's assumed that senators know what they're talking about. So when she said this, this isn't like Tony McGuire doing a video on YouTube and saying, you know, this is why here's top 10 reasons why I disagree with the Senate. Like, who the hell am I? I'm Tony McGuire. I'm nobody director from Thunder Bay. This is Senator Lynn Beyak, who has the resources of the government of Canada behind her. And so when she comes into school, she's recognized. The teachers and the principals run up behind her. This is a senator, children. And everyone she meets is like, wow, this is a senator of Canada. So that has a vast meaning. And so when she says that, you know, you can preserve your cultures and your own communities on your own time with your own dime, which is implying that she's paying for my culture and that Canadians are paying for my culture. And it's about time you gave up your status card and started paying for your own culture on your own dime, on your own time, with your own rhymes, you know, having a good time, and yo, I'm a bust a freestyle, Senator Beyak, you know, like, like, it's a little maddening, and that's why Indigenous people are kind of freaking out over this, because it's not just like a couple statements, it's a whole series of statements that are not only untrue, but they're verifiably untrue. They're verified. The historical facts do not support it. There's no historian out there you can name that will back up what she's saying. And so that's where the danger comes from. And then further, you know, and to finish this off, she said the Indian Act industry in Ottawa and all the assimilation and the Indian leaders have already assimilated into the white, and they've combined their two cultures, and she just basically, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, you know, Indigenous don't particularly like the chief and council system because we didn't make that system. Ours is a consensual based system across Canada that's very female led. Grandmothers and grandfathers have a role in it. And it's a very slow system that makes sure that everybody's views are respected. We didn't really believe in this. Not that we didn't believe in democracy. Don't get yourself wrong there. It's that everyone had to have a role and a voice in our system. And so the chief and council system is we have it now. We use it to the best of our abilities. And 4% of chiefs in Canada are verifiably having committed acts of corruption. It's not a majority, it's a small minority, and even their acts of corruption are very tiny. Like it's like Indians just do not steal well. I don't know why that is. We should get better at it, but we just are not good at it. And so, you know, to imply that this industry act and all Indigenous are she said this, she said there's a silent minority or a silent majority behind her who are sitting there, and she's safeguarding their voices. She is saying that the majority of Indigenous actually secretly support what she's saying, and they are actually against this Indian industry and everything that's going on, and we're just, you know, thank you, Senator Beyak, for carrying our views, because this Indian Act industry, and it's like, please stop. This is the most damaging type of behavior when someone at your status says this type of stuff. And anyone out there who's saying this is freedom of speech issue and all this, and that our country, once we go down this, the road to political correctness, no, it's the road to politically verifiable historical fact without spin. In fact, remove the politically verifiable, just historical fact, that's it. That's what we teach our kids. This is historical fact. This is how you act. Let's talk about ethics. This is how you treat others. This is what it's about. And she has just decided to just do whatever the hell she wants. And so I just wanted to clarify for anyone who's wondering why we're so pissed off and why we're arguing about you know, her condemnation. Andrew Scheer has got to get off his ass, and he's got to do more than he's doing, where he's, well, yeah, we're kind of chilling, you know, Beyak made a, you know, not a mistake, like she did a freedom of speech. No, she's wrong. You condemn it, you ask for a public resignation. If she doesn't give it, fine. because it's just the right thing to do. Bam.